Hello, friend. Welcome to History ZZZ. We're glad you are here. Get comfortable. Let your body settle. Feel the weight of your arms against whatever is holding you. Let your shoulders drop. There's nothing you need to do right now. Nowhere you need to be. Just breathe. In and out. In and out. Tonight, we're going to tell you a mystery. Not a ghost story. Not a conspiracy. A real mystery. One that sat at the bottom of the sea for 2,000 years. One that sat in a museum drawer for 50 more. One that scientists are still, even now, not fully sure they understand. Close your eyes. We are going somewhere ancient and somewhere strange. This is the Ghost Machine. The year is 1901. Off the coast of a small Greek island called Antikythera, a group of sponge divers are sheltering from a storm. They have been at sea for weeks. They are tired. The water here is cold and very deep. When the storm passes, one of them slips beneath the surface to look for sponges near the seafloor. What he finds instead stops him cold. A shipwreck, ancient, Roman era. The kind of wreck that has been sitting on the seafloor so long it has become part of it. Planks dissolved, cargo scattered, the entire structure pressed into the sediment by 2 millennia of ocean weight. Scattered among the debris, marble statues, bronze figures, glassware, jewelry, amphoras still sealed. And one other thing, a lump of corroded bronze about the size of a large dictionary, badly oxidized, fused into a solid mass. Something vaguely mechanical looking on the surface, but so deteriorated it was hard to say what. The divers brought it up anyway. The wreck was excavated over the following months by the Greek Navy. It became one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds ever made. The statues alone were priceless. A life-sized bronze philosopher, a marble horse, a bronze youth of such beauty that scholars still argue about which ancient master made him. The corroded bronze lump was catalogued and sent to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. And then it sat in a drawer. For decades. It was damaged. It was ugly. It appeared to be nothing more than a fragment of some unknown bronze object, possibly decorative, possibly a tool. The statues got all the attention. It would be more than 50 years before anyone looked closely enough to understand what they had actually found. In 1951, a British historian named Derek de Solla Price heard about the object. He was a physicist by training, a historian of science by vocation, and he had a habit, annoying to some of his colleagues, of taking the ancient world completely seriously. He traveled to Athens, he examined the fragments, and what he saw made him catch his breath. Gears. Not 1 or 2 gears. Dozens of them, interlocking, layered, meshing with each other in ways that implied a specific, intentional mechanical purpose. The corrosion had fused them together into what looked like solid rock, but under careful examination, the shapes were unmistakable. This was a machine, a gear-driven mechanical device, built based on the dating of the shipwreck sometime around 100 BC. Let that sink in for a moment. 100 BC. This was before the fall of the Roman Republic, before Julius Caesar, before the construction of the Colosseum. The next gear-driven mechanism of comparable complexity would not appear in the historical record for another 1400 years. Not in Rome, not in Byzantium, not in the great Islamic golden age of mathematics and astronomy. 1400 years of silence. Whatever knowledge was used to build this thing, it vanished so completely that it might as well have never existed. Let your breathing slow. We are only beginning. Price spent years studying the fragments. He published his first major paper in 1959. His conclusions were so extraordinary that many of his colleagues refused to believe them. He argued that the Antikythera Mechanism, as it was now being called, was an astronomical calculator, a device designed to track the movements of the sun and moon, to predict eclipses, to calculate the positions of the known planets. Turn a handle on one side, and the gears inside would spin in precise mathematical ratios, moving pointers across dials that displayed the current date in multiple calendar systems simultaneously. It was, Price wrote, nothing less than a mechanical model of the cosmos, an ancient Greek orrery, a clockwork universe that fit in your hands. His colleagues said this was impossible. The Greeks, they argued, didn't think that way. They were philosophers. They dealt in abstract mathematics, not mechanical engineering. Price pointed at the gears and said, then explain this. In 1971, Price convinced the Greek government to allow the fragments to be X-rayed. The results were startling. Inside the corroded exterior, invisible to the naked eye, were at least 30 distinct gear wheels, each one individually cut, each one bearing tiny inscriptions in ancient Greek. The inscriptions were instructions, descriptions of what each dial represented, notes on how to read the device. References to astronomical cycles that Price recognized immediately. The Metonic cycle, which tracks the relationship between lunar months and solar years. The Saros cycle, used to predict eclipses. This wasn't a decorative object. This wasn't a curiosity or a toy. This was a precision scientific instrument, designed by someone who understood the mathematics of the heavens at a level that would not be surpassed for over 1,000 years. Let your eyes grow heavy. There is more. Who built it? We don't know. Price suspected it came from the island of Rhodes, a center of astronomical learning in the ancient world, home to the astronomer Hipparchus, who mapped the stars with extraordinary precision around 150 BC. Some scholars have suggested it might have been built in the tradition of Archimedes, the great mathematician and engineer who was said by ancient sources to have built a mechanical model of the heavens. A Roman orator named Cicero actually described such a device. He wrote that Archimedes had built a sphere of bronze that, when turned, showed the motions of the sun and moon and 5 planets just as they occurred in the sky. For centuries, historians assumed Cicero was exaggerating. They assumed the ancients lacked the mechanical knowledge to build such a thing. The Antikythera Mechanism suggests they were wrong. Breathe slowly. Whatever the truth was, it sank to the bottom of the sea on a Roman ship crossing the Aegean sometime around 60 BC, and it stayed there for 19 centuries. In 2005, a new team of researchers applied a technology that Price never had access to: microfocus X-ray computed tomography, the same kind of CT scan used in modern hospitals, but calibrated for dense metal objects. The machine peered inside each fragment of the mechanism and produced a 3-dimensional map of everything inside: every gear tooth, every axle, every surface inscription. What they found silenced the room. There were more gears than anyone had suspected. More dials, more inscriptions, thousands of characters of text, some of them only a fraction of a millimeter high, too small to read with the naked eye. The device was even more sophisticated than Price had imagined. It didn't just track the sun and moon. It modeled the irregular motion of the moon. The fact that the moon moves slightly faster at some points in its orbit than others, a phenomenon caused by the elliptical shape of its path. The ancient builder had known this, and had built a gear mechanism specifically to replicate it. The elliptical orbit of the moon. In ancient Greece, 2,000 years before Newton, before Kepler's laws of planetary motion, before calculus, before telescopes, The builder of this device had observed the moon carefully enough over enough years to notice that it moved irregularly, and had then designed a physical machine to model that irregularity using a pin and slot gear mechanism of extraordinary cleverness. The solution is so elegant that modern engineers who have studied it describe it the way people describe works of art. They say, beautiful. Let your body sink deeper into where you are resting. 2,000 years ago, someone looked at the night sky with patient, persistent attention and understood something true about it. And then they built a machine to hold that truth in bronze. The ship that carried it sank around 60 BC. We don't know exactly where it was going. The best guess, based on the cargo, which included luxury goods, fine glassware, and Roman-style items, is that it was a commercial vessel headed from Asia Minor, possibly passing through Rhodes, toward Rome or another Western port. Someone on that ship owned the mechanism. Who? A Roman general who had looted it from a Greek city? A wealthy merchant? A philosopher carrying his most prized possession? We don't know. The ship hit something, rocks, a storm, bad luck, and went down in about 45 meters of water in a channel known to be treacherous. Everything aboard scattered across the seafloor. The bronze statues sank straight down. The amphoras rolled. The mechanism came to rest in the sediment and stayed there while the Roman Empire rose and fell, while medieval Europe forgot the ancient world, while the Renaissance rediscovered mathematics, while the Enlightenment invented the very machinery that the mechanism had already invented 2,000 years before. It waited. The fragments are kept today in the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. There are 82 of them. They represent perhaps a third of the original device. The rest has not been found, dissolved by the sea, buried deeper in the sediment, or simply gone. What remains has been studied by some of the world's best engineers, mathematicians, astronomers, and classicists. They have built working replicas, some from bronze, some from modern alloys, some as digital models. Every attempt to reconstruct it has required compromises, because the missing third of the device took some of its secrets with it. We know it tracked the Olympics, we know it tracked the Panhellenic Games, we know it had a front dial showing the zodiac and an Egyptian calendar. We know it had a back dial, a spiral, tracking the 223-month Saros cycle for predicting eclipses. What else was there? We may never know. Let your breathing slow. The sea keeps its secrets. There is a question that haunts every serious study of the Antikythera Mechanism. If the ancient Greeks could build this, if they understood the mathematics, the astronomy, the mechanical engineering, why didn't it lead to more? Why did the knowledge die? The Industrial Revolution that we usually place in 18th century England required precisely the skills demonstrated by this device: precision metalworking, mechanical gear theory, applied mathematics. The Greeks had all of these, and yet nothing came of it. Some historians argue it was economics. Slave labor was cheap. There was no economic pressure to invent labor-saving machines. Others argue it was philosophy. The Greek intellectual tradition valued abstract thought over practical application. Knowing the heavens was noble. Building machines was for craftsmen. Others simply say, we don't know. The knowledge was there, the skill was there, and then it wasn't. The ghost machine floated somewhere on the Mediterranean and then sank, and the tradition that built it sank with it. In 2016, a team of researchers from University College London announced that they had finally decoded a section of inscription on the back of the mechanism that had never been fully read. It described the planets. All 5 of the planets visible to the naked eye, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn were apparently tracked by the device. This meant the mechanism was not just a sun and moon calculator. It was a full model of the known solar system. The team is still working to understand how the planetary tracking was implemented. The gears that drove it are among the missing third, but the inscriptions are clear. Someone, 2,000 years ago, built a machine that showed where every planet was in the sky on any given date. You could hold the cosmos in your hands, turn the handle forward, watch Jupiter move, watch Saturn slow, watch the moon race ahead and fall behind in its endless, slightly irregular circle. Close your eyes and picture it, the gears spinning in the dark inside the box, the pointers moving almost too slowly to see. The wreck has been re-examined several times since 1901. In 2021, an international team using advanced underwater robots completed a new survey of the site. They found that less than a third of the wreck has ever been excavated. There may be more fragments of the mechanism still in the sediment. There may be other objects, documents, writing tablets, instruments that have survived in conditions that prevented their complete decay. The team is working toward a full excavation. It will take years. It is possible, not certain, but possible, that the missing third of the Antikythera mechanism is still there, 45 meters down, pressed into the sediment. Patient as only truly ancient things can be patient, waiting to finish answering our questions. Let your body grow heavier. Some things take a very long time to reveal themselves. There is something I want you to sit with as you drift toward sleep. The person who built the Antikythera mechanism did not know that their creation would end up on the seafloor. They did not know it would sit in a museum drawer for 50 years. They did not know that scholars in the 20th century would spend their entire careers trying to understand it. They did not know that people in the 21st century would scan it with machines that could see through solid bronze and find messages they had written, in letters barely visible to the naked eye. They built it because they wanted to understand the sky, because the motion of the moon was beautiful and puzzling, and they thought they could capture it. Because the planets moved in their ancient rhythms, and someone wanted to hold those rhythms in their hands. They built a machine for knowledge, and the machine survived everything. 2,000 years of ocean, 50 years of neglect, and it still had things to say. The night sky that the mechanism modeled is the same sky above you right now, the same moon, the same planets. The moon still moves in its slightly irregular way, a little faster near perigee, a little slower near apogee, just as the builder of the mechanism knew it did. Jupiter is still out there, moving on its 12-year cycle. Saturn, slow and steady on its 29-year path. The same mathematics that drove those ancient gears still governs the movement of every object in the solar system. It was always there to be discovered. Someone found it once and lost it, and someone found it again. Let your breathing slow to something very quiet. The sky is patient. It has been moving overhead for 5 billion years, and it will keep moving long after you and I and everything we know has become the sediment of some future sea. Tonight, that is somehow a comfort. The Antikythera mechanism is about 30 centimeters tall, about 20 centimeters wide, perhaps 10 centimeters deep, roughly the size of a large hardcover book. It weighed, when new, perhaps a kilogram. It contained at least 30 gear wheels, possibly more than 40. It tracked the sun, it tracked the moon, it tracked the 5 known planets. It predicted eclipses on a 223-month cycle. It tracked multiple calendar systems simultaneously. It showed the dates of athletic festivals. It modeled the irregular orbit of the moon using a pin and slot mechanism of extraordinary elegance. All of this in a box the size of a book in 100 BC. Close your eyes. Let the image of those gears spinning stay with you as you fall asleep. 30 bronze wheels, each one cut by hand, moving in the dark, keeping perfect time with the sky. The question of what else the ancient Greeks knew and lost is one of the great what-ifs of history. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of ancient knowledge, was destroyed in stages over centuries. We don't know exactly what was in it. Hero of Alexandria, working around the 1st century AD, described steam-powered devices, automata, a programmable cart driven by a falling weight. Ctesibius, 3 centuries earlier, built a water organ and a water clock of remarkable accuracy. The Antikythera Mechanism was found by accident. The sponge diver was sheltering from a storm. He happened to dive in that particular spot. How many other devices are still down there? How many were lost in other wrecks, in other drawers, in other fires? We can only see the past through what survived it. And survival is mostly luck. Let your mind drift. The ancient world was stranger and more brilliant than we usually let ourselves imagine. You are getting very close to sleep now. Let your thoughts soften. Let the story settle around you like something warm. 2,000 years ago, the Mediterranean was full of ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, crossing constantly between ports that are now famous ruins or modern cities. On one of those ships, in a wooden case, was a bronze machine of extraordinary beauty. The ship sank. The machine slept for 1,900 years. A storm sent divers to the right place at the right time. A physicist with good eyes noticed what the gears meant. A CT scanner found the hidden inscriptions. And now, in a museum in Athens, behind glass in a climate-controlled case, the fragments rest, still with secrets, still with questions we cannot answer, still, in some sense, keeping time. Let the sound of the ocean carry you now, the sound of water moving over an ancient seafloor, the slow drift of sediment, the faint, imagined sound of bronze gears that no longer turn but once did. You don't need to understand everything tonight. You don't need to solve any mysteries. You only need to breathe, in and out, in and out. The ancient world is still there beneath the modern one, in the sediment, in the museum cases, in the mathematics that still governs the orbits of planets that have been circling the sun since long before there were eyes to watch them. Let your eyes be heavy. Let your body be still. The gears are turning, slowly, in the dark. Thank you for spending this night with us. The Antikythera Mechanism sits tonight in Athens, as it has for over a century. The sea around Antikythera Island is quiet. The wreck site is undisturbed. Somewhere in the sediment, perhaps, the missing third waits. Sleep well. The ancient world will be here when you wake.